Well, good evening. Today is April 19th, 2021, and you are in Rowan County, North Carolina at our County Commission meeting, the second one of this month. And it's always an honor to have folks show up at these meetings, and we appreciate you being here and hope that the time that you're with us today you'll find to be profitable. And so we're going to start as we always start with a couple of things. We're going to have a pledge of allegiance. We're also going to have what's called a solemnizing prayer. A solemnizing prayer, it's actually a legal term, and the prayer is for us, the commissioners. It's not for you out in the audience. You're welcome to listen along, but honestly, we take very seriously what we do as representatives of this community. You elected us to make decisions, and sometimes decisions are hard, and so we seek wisdom where we can. And so we'd like for our chaplain to come forward and lead the commissioners in a solemnizing prayer. So commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
Thank you, commissioners. Lord, we come to you today on this beautiful day provided for us. We come to you on behalf of the county commissioners, Lord. Again, we thank you for the work they do, and I pray that you'll be with them tonight. I know, Lord, that they've already asked for wisdom, Lord, so give it to them tonight, Lord. And I pray you'll take care of them and help them, Lord Jesus, everything be done in the right manner today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Taylor, as always, for being with us. All right, commissioners, we've got a few additions that have been provided to you. The first one is a settlement agreement that was provided to us from Council JDs. We'll make that consent item number letter H. Second one is from Don Bringle regarding Woodleaf Community Park. We'll make that consent item I. And then also item from Major John Sifford of the Sheriff's Department, approval of the Rowan County Detention Center medical plan. We'll make that item J on consent agenda. That's all I have in the way of changes. Commissioners, are there any other additions or deletions?
Wasn't there a resolution that was going to be added? Proclamation from Faith?
No, sir.
Got an email on it.
They were just forwarding us.
Okay, so one get here, okay.
Yep. All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Judy. Motion, Craig second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's see. And then the minutes from April 5th and April 7th from provided to us. Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then the consent agenda was amended, and so motion to approve the amended consent agenda. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, do we have anyone for public comment? No, nobody? Anyone? Anyone have anything to say? All right, we'll move on.
Are we doing Zoom?
Yeah, we are doing Zoom. Aaron's on there. Mike's on his way. Mike was in
I
court.
was just wondering if there's somebody from the community might be on.
Yeah, April, anyone for us on Zoom?
We have a few attendees. If you'd like to speak, feel free to use the raise hand feature.
I'd like to welcome the attendees on Zoom today.
I do not see any indication, sir.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on and to item number 3, and that is Shane Stewart for the Northpoint development item. Shane, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So the subject property we're speaking of this evening is at the 400 block of Webb Road, and it's the Thespin and Myers property, Northpoint Development, is the applicant looking to rezone. The site's about 45 acres that you see here in blue. And thank you, April. So the current zoning is 8582, and the requested designation here for the application is CBI. Get this to advance. There we go. All right, so the total frontage on Webb Road is about 4/10 of a mile, so lots of frontage there. And there's also about 700 feet of frontage along the railroad corridor here to the left. And the site is developed with one residence, and it does have a couple of accessory buildings on the property. You also see the floodplain associated with Town Creek here adjacent and the proximity to 85. The site generally is a pretty flat property. It does have a slight slope to Town Creek, and you see the green line here representing an existing 18-inch sewer line for SRU. And in speaking with SRU staff, most likely that'd be extended along the frontage of Webb Road back over here near the railroad track. There's also a 24-inch water line down 29 that would have to go under the railroad tracks, and it would extend along the frontage here back towards the auction drive. In terms of the East land use plan, there's several recommendations for this area. You see on the map there, the red star and a quarter. Commercial industrial uses and mixed use developments are encouraged. At the bottom, kind of working around, the extension of utilities is encouraged, and they will continue that policy with SRU of just extending that on down to the next available property. And with it being on the corridor for the rail line, you know, it has a potential use there as well, but don't know any potential use yet. But keep in mind, if you hear any prospects of spec building or use, we are under a general rezoning. So you could consider that, but in the context of any other type uses that are allowed in CBI2. From the CBI district's consistency with that district's purpose and intent, it does have a wide range of commercial, business, and light industrial activities, and it supports both the local and regional economies in most cases. And the appropriate designations in these corridors, which Webb Road would be one of those, and in areas served by public utilities. Simple comparison here to the current and proposed districts. CBI is much more broad. The ED zones are a bit more limiting, not quite as flexible, but there's been several sites that's had success, but sometimes it's just you want to have a little bit more flexibility. And that district, that's what is proposed for CBI, does work for that. You see at the bottom a listing of all the things that ED2 permits, but in the manufacturing section, it's more associated with that district, a little bit less in the transportation logistics section, and wholesale trades not permitted by right. So all those are much more open in CBI. As far as the vicinity, I think the board's well aware of the Platinum site. What we used to refer to back here is now owned by the Seven Islands Environmental Cox Communication. So that's a dominant player around. The rail corridor here in 4, the grouping down here, you have the SROC Cement Corp, Universal Forest Products, and then Cornerstone here in 3. And as far as the zone changes that have occurred in the area, back about 21 years ago, this used to be Zone CBI. And it, again, with the blue, it joined and formed that large Platinum site. Could have been one large project. And the ED zone at that time, 21 years ago, was identified that that's the appropriate zone. But there's been changes in the area too that have went to CBI this year for Cornerstone in 07, and also on Auction Drive here in 16 to CBI. So this would complete that corridor through here on Webb and link the red areas up for a CBI designation. Kind of surprising, but Webb Road does have 7,300 AADT. That's pretty high. And it's not listed on here, but US 29 Main Street, 1,100 or 11,000, excuse me. That's about right here. It didn't make the map. But both of those are under capacity. Definitely on Webb, it's getting a little closer, but any application here and development plans would have to meet DOT specifications, and depending on the scope of the project may warrant, TIA study or whatnot, but until there's a site plan, we won't know. But DOT staff has been involved with this request and is aware of the potential there. As with any rezoning, we have procedures to go through here, and notice is sent out like typical, sign posted on the property, ads in the Salisbury Post. Staff did not receive any phone calls. Do have Pastor Godare here. He may want to speak. He was at the planning board meeting as well. Michael Johnston with Northpoint is present, and if the board has any questions of him. And lastly, planning board recommended statements for your benefit. This was also included in the board material, so I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions for Shane? Okay. All right, Shane, thank you. I'd let the general public know, if you have heard the name Northpoint before, it is because Northpoint is the developer that brought us Chewy. And so now Northpoint, they had a good experience, have had a good experience in Rowan County. And so now they are back again. And so they're looking at a big development on Webb Road, and we are grateful that they are here talking to us about a second bite at the apple. Would representative from Northpoint like to come forward? Thank you for being here. Aren't you from Kansas City?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Actually.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Well, welcome.
No, glad to be here and appreciate everybody's time this evening. Obviously appreciate planning staff's work on this project. It's been a great process so far. As you mentioned, we developed down here when we did Chewy, which was a great experience, and we are looking to return and work with the county again on another great project. We feel that parcel has great access to the interstate. Obviously, there's great economics in the surrounding area to support staffing and things of that nature. So the rezone request is simply just to kind of bring the parcel into cohesiveness with the surrounding, mostly CBI in that area. So we don't feel it a crazy stretch to rezone back to that CBI. And again, just appreciate everybody's time tonight, and I can answer any questions anybody may have with regard.
Questions?
Michael Johnston.
Mr. Johnston, again, it's been almost a couple years since Chewy made their announcement here. We want to thank you again. You've made a huge difference in our community, but to have you back a second time means a lot to us.
Appreciate that.
Anything we can do to make your next project go well, please let us know. I know you're in good hands, but to say thank you again is an understatement. You're real important to us, and we appreciate you being back.
Absolutely. No, we look forward to another great project down here.
Good. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Johnston? All right, then, well, thank you. We will we'll conduct a public hearing. We're going to open the floor for a public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to speak on Z02-21, feel free to come forward and do that. Anyone?
Hello, my name is Bill Godare, and I'm the lead pastor at Cornerstone Church. And I would just like to say that we are very excited about the opportunity here. It is something that we had looked for personally ourselves for a long time. I want to say thank you. I know you guys and ladies put up with a lot of stuff, but the excitement that y'all have brought to our county, and even with the younger people, is just wonderful. The new jobs and new opportunities. I was telling someone before we started, I have 5 grandchildren now, and I'm thankful that our county is positioned to the place that as they grow older or whatever, all my children all live right here. I'm happy to have them all within 20 miles of me. And we all live right here in Rowan County, and we love it. So thank you for everything that you do. And we're excited about this. The only thing that we brought up at the planning, I believe it was the planning board, was just the fact that of the traffic. And I'm sure that's probably being addressed some. But anyway, we hope and pray that this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Goodare. Anyone else? All right, then we'll close the public hearing. And I've got some statements of consistency that, any discussion that we have before I offer these up? All right, then I'll offer up these items as a motion for a statement of consistency. The Z02-21 general rezoning from 85 ED2 to CBI is based on the following facts. 1, current zoning and use of the surrounding land is being used for commercial, industrial, and mixed use already. 2, the request is consistent with the East Rowan Land Use Plan's I-85 and US 29 corridor recommendations. And 3rd, CBI is consistent and complementary to other uses in the area, and the parcel is adjacent to existing CBI districts. So I make that in a form of a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Greg. Any discussion? All right, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then do we have a motion to approve Z02-21?
So, second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, thank you again. Appreciate you. Next item, Shane, we'll have a quasi-judicial hearing for amending CUP 08-16 Cherry Tree Resort. I have a statement that I'm required to read. The hearing for consideration of amending CUP 08-16 is now in session and will focus on an application submitted by Trent Cherry to add 8 additional tree houses on tax parcel 120-140 located at the 1800 block of Flat Rock Road. If you feel any member of the board may have a conflict of interest in hearing the case, please address the board now prior to any testimony or information being presented. When the board enters into deliberations to decide the case, no further testimony may be presented. The board will render one of the following 3 decisions. 1, will approve the permit as requested or with additional conditions. 2, will continue the request, or 3, deny the request. All parties who plan to testify in this case may come forward and be sworn in. Those who testify must state their name and address at the podium for the benefit of the board's clerk. All material presented must be given to the clerk and will become part of the record. This board can only accept sworn testimony, and no hearsay evidence is admissible. And Shane will present for the county. Shane, thank you.
Shane Stewart, Rowan County Planning Office, 402 North Main Street, Salisbury. The board is very familiar with this site. This will be the 3rd request that has came before the board. This is a 2nd amendment. And the Cherry Treesort property you see in the background here, it's located at the 1800 block of Flat Rock Road. Nicholas Trent Cherry is the property owner. Okay. And looking at the vicinity map here, you see the property outlined in red. The yellow represents the RA zoning district, which is the primary district associated with the site and where all the tree houses are located. The RR district is in the gray to the north. It's about a 25-acre tract. In the 2018 photo, you can't see a whole lot, but There are currently 5 tree houses and 2 hobbit houses on the property. 4 of those tree houses are on Treehouse Lane. Along the wooded portion here, the road truncates down here. The 5th tree house is the 3rd structure on the left with 2 hobbit houses up from that. That represents the current improvements. Last year, Mr. Cherry requested some additional tree houses. The board granted 3 of those. So he's back for the other that he's being requested for. So 7 total current, 7 instead of 8. The report says 8, but after it was sent out, it's actually 7 based on the revised site plan and meeting some buffering standards and setbacks. He settled on 7. Here's the site plan from Basinger Design. The red circles representing existing tree houses. This is the road we talked about earlier from the original request. 2 up here, 2 on the lower end, 1 new on Cherry Farm Road, and the 2 hobbit houses all existing. We're going to focus on the lower part of this tract. And anything referenced in the material here or the report, I refer to upper drive and lower drive as such. Map's got a lot of information on it, but I'll try to work you through it. So here's the 2 hobbit we talked about, the 1 tree. And right now the road comes off Flat Rock and makes an immediate left, hooks around, and terminates here as a turnaround. The proposal would be to continue that loop road all the way back and wrap to the beginning. And then the black squares that you see are proposed 7 new treehouse structures. And on the upper area for these 3 existing, this is an existing septic system in repair serving those structures. And then all these new will be served by an approved new system environmental health's worked on with Mr. Cherry. And a couple other things to point out too. We've got 2 tree houses here that would be within 200 feet in an adjoining residence or residential accessory structure. Screening's not the easiest under dense tree canopy. So Mr. Cherry will talk about some options that he's worked with his landscaper on that he'd like to present to the board. The ordinance requirements are only 125% of the length of the development that has to be screened, has to have either evergreens, which again are probably going to be difficult, or a wooden or similar type opaque fence. In terms of the road, one of the things talked about in a condition of the previous request is the condition of the road. Fire marshal's been out and what's there has been approved by her office. And you'll see later if the board decides to approve this, one of the conditions staff would encourage is the completion of that loop road approved by the fire marshal. And she's also indicated wanting a agreement on the upkeep of that road. Mr. Cherry's aware of that and he can speak for himself, but he has informed me that he's in agreement with all that before the next permit is issued on a treehouse. All right, so a few visuals to help with what I've talked about on that site plan. On the upper pictures, you see the south and north view along Flat Rock. The left-hand side of the upper left is the Treesort property, and then the right on this image. From the entrance on the lower left, this is looking towards Hobbit House number 2. And to the right, this is a close-up view. I don't know if it was complete in this picture here, but it's close. And you see a tree house from the original phase on beyond the tree line here. Working your way back into the site, this is a little bit to the right of that first Hobbit house, and you see a little green patch here. That's the second one. And on below that is treehouse number 5 on the left. And then that's the end and the large turnaround. Below number 5, this is a kind of difficult to see, but it just gives you an obscure look back into the 3 and 4 treehouse area. And then going back towards on the upper left at the side entrance looking back. So that road will wrap around the interior portion of the trees and come back to the entrance with the continuation of the tree houses just inside that tree line. The lower image is from the entrance looking back up to the duplex area on the 1700 block. I guess you wouldn't be surprised that the land use plan doesn't have recommendations about tree houses. But with that, I think we can also glean from any request that you kind of generically look at the impacts. And for this one, besides, I would guess, any kind of visual impacts, which the 2 I mentioned with the 200 foot would have some blockage there Mr. Cherry is going to propose. But from the previous couple of requests, there was claims about noise and whatnot. So in the report, it did include 911 calls for the last, well, I guess 13 months. And there were 2, one of which March 1st, 2020 was actually before the March 16th, 2020 hearing. So that one's already occurred prior to that last meeting. So effectively had 1 call April 6th that's the end date, but there was 1 allergic reaction call in June of 2020. And then the other one was from March 1st for a stalking incident. No other calls, according to 911 staff. The 2 that I referenced in the area were on the road front, on Flat Rock Road, had nothing to do with the Treesort property. We sent notice to 18 individuals that own property within the required 100 feet, posted a sign on the property. This represents on the left-hand side those individuals. Ms. Hampton, I believe, is present, and she called the office and would like to address the board at her time. Procedurally, this should be if instead of in, but usually, unless the board really feels it's necessary, 3 separate motions are sufficient for your findings. And you do have those just from the 2020 request. I did update 1 figure in there. It accounted for the homes built within the last year. So that number's updated in your information to reflect 8. And 1, again, that condition, if the board decides to approve the request, is just create the loop road and obtain the fire marshal certification and whatever required documents there prior to the next permit for a treehouse. Any questions that I could answer?
Did you say that there was 8 new residents built in this general area?
The condition, or excuse me, the finding from last time, I think represented 5, and I updated it to 8. So within the last year, there were 3 new ones that were either replacement homes or brand new homes built within a 1-mile area.
Are those,
Or a half mile, I'm sorry.
those are not necessarily stick-built houses. They could be modular.
2 of them were double wides, I believe.
On that diagram, looking for north, south, east, west on it, I don't see, but down on that, on the right-hand side, you're talking about buffering issues. Are any of the pictures that you have in here, they show us that view?
No, sir, they do not. And this may be the best. I mean, over here you can see, this is from 18. There's a small area of woods here. So a lot of the woods that you would see is probably the neighbors. And these are the couple of homes, or their storage buildings that are within that distance. And I think it was just those 2.
Anything else for Shane? All right, thank you, Shane. Trent, you got anything for us?
Unless you got anything for me.
Are you?
I guess I can address the buffer issue in the road.
You just like coming back, don't you?
I don't want to be back anymore. So the road issue, just to go over that, had a construction company come out a month ago. We looked at it. We've already got a quote to put 18-foot wide, which meets regulation. It's 2,100 feet around, which the fire marshal, Deborah, wanted to make the circle for the fire truck. It would have a mat laid down first, then gravel. We've already got all the stuff, quoted, and it's, depending on the outcome of tonight, that'll start in the next week, and have that done. I also contacted my friend Dennis Terry, who works with Dennis Terry Designs. He's a landscape design architect. Gave me a list of, which I shared with Shane before the meeting, of like 8 different shrubs, bushes, evergreens that could be planted in a dense wooded area. Because if you look at that area, it's literally 20 to 60 foot of forest. Like I couldn't see from me to you through it. So getting the right plants, so we don't cut through an oak to put up an evergreen, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So putting the right stuff in there. And I also went to Mr. Tidwell, which is the only house that this project is really bothering. Talked to him today. He's a good friend. He's never had a problem with it. Told him, showed him, took him the map, this exact map, showed him what the plans were. And we talked about it, and he said he has no problem as long as the trees are planted. We even talked, would you rather want a fence or trees? And he said, I'm good either way. He said, we've got plenty of woods in between. So I went and checked off with my neighbor, make sure that was good for those two.
Is that the lower house?
That's the two on the right side, right? Everything else is in the 200-foot radius. And to be honest, like I told Mr. Tidwell, I said, I don't ever know if I'll get to those two. Those would be the last two built, to be honest. And he was okay with all that, and told him that, whatever we need to do to work out. And I showed him the plan. So the road's got a plan. Deborah, when she came out, the fire marshal, she was happy to see the circle, so they wouldn't have to try to 3-point turn a fire truck. And like I said, I've got quotes on that. The road ended up being 2,100 feet. I'm not happy about it, but it's going to take about 50 truckloads of crushed concrete to finish this road. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it once. I'm going to do it right. So we've already talked about that. So if you guys have any other questions or thoughts or concerns while I'm here, I'd be happy to answer them.
So in the 13 months from March to April of March of 2020 to April of 21, there were a couple of 911 calls. Allergic reaction, just someone on the property?
If I tell you, you're going to laugh, but she was allergic to wood and they rented a tree house. I don't want to be mean. I just don't know how to help you there. Like, she had an allergic reaction to the wood. She called me. I helped her any way I could. She was not mad. She just said, we thought we could get away with it. We just couldn't. And I said, it is a tree house. I don't know what to tell you. That's the only call that I remember. I don't even know what the second one was. Stalking?
Stalking? Stalking, yeah.
Are you talking about?
I don't know, March 1st of 2020.
I think Shane said that those took place outside.
No, there were two outside. But these were Treesort.
I have not been notified of that. I don't believe there's any stalking at the treehouse. I know we had a guy stay there. This is true. There was a guy that stayed there, left there, and went and tried to burn his girlfriend's house down and went to jail that night. Don't know if that's the stalking you're talking about. Maybe that had something to do with it. It was just, I had no idea till after the fact, but no one's ever called me with a stalking claim of any sort.
Anything else?
Unless you guys got something.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. What's that?
See you next year.
Hope not. Thank you, guys.
All right.
For public comment.
All right, so we're going to open the floor, and this will be the public hearing part. Any comments that anyone would have from the floor? You just come forward, and we really don't have a time limit on this, maybe sundown. But just state your name and your address, and we'd love to hear from you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just want to thank you guys for honoring the Lord at the beginning of your sessions. I know you've had some opposition to that, and as a resident of Rowan County, that's important to me, and so I thank you for that. My name is Donna Hampton, and I live at 445 Beaver Road, which is off of Flat Rock and in close proximity to the campground. And I have a few issues with that. The most recent one was Saturday night, because I got home about a little after 11 o'clock at night. And as I was walking into the house, and it was a nice night, I was out in the yard walking around a little bit. I'm a gardener. I enjoy being out in the yard. And I came out to feed the cats, and because I had gotten home late from work. Anyway, I heard people shouting and yelling from over that way. And I thought, what's going on over there? And so I stood out there for a little bit to see what was going on. And I don't know if there was a party but it was coming from two different locations. And I don't know if they were shouting back and forth, or they were walking up and down the road, or what they were doing, the road over there. Anyway, so I thought, okay, and I'm also a beekeeper. And so I walked out there to see my bees and see how they look. And when it's a warm night, sometimes they spill out over the edge, some. Anyway, so I was messing around outside just to see what was going to happen over there. And they continued for a little while. It wasn't, and this doesn't happen all the time, but it happens occasionally. And so I could hear them very well. I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but I could hear them very well. I could tell there were men and women. And I decided that I was just going to stick around a little bit to see what happened. And I thought, it got to be 11:30. And I thought, when it used to be that I was a teenager and I went to Myrtle Beach years ago, they had what do you call it? It wasn't a law, but it was an ordinance. And at 11 o'clock at night, it was quiet time. And everybody's supposed to quiet down and be considerate of others and be respectful, especially in hotels along the Strand. And I thought, if this is an upscale place, or if it's a decent place, they ought to have a quiet time. There ought to be it ought to be understood that at a certain time at night, there's quiet time in respect for the people over on Beaver Road. And I'm very disappointed in that, because that's happened a number of times. And I didn't write it down. At one time I started writing it down on my calendar, but I don't anymore. But there's been a number of times that's happened. But that happened Saturday night. And I thought, if they don't get quiet by 12 o'clock, I'm calling Mr. Cherry, and I'm going to get him out of bed. And I bet he'll remember that, because he probably won't want to have to get up again and come over here and quiet these people down. So anyway, by about 11:45, they calmed down, and I didn't hear anything else. But I think there should be some kind of understanding over there when they come to stay, that there's a quiet time, and they're to be quiet and respectful of others. It seems like when they come out there, even though it's 25 acres, they think they're out in the Pisgah Forest or somewhere, like they can let their hair hang down, let it all out, their frustrations, yell, scream, run around and act like nuts. And I understand we need to do that sometimes, but they're not in the middle of the Pisgah Forest. And they'll crank their radios up sometimes. I heard that a while back. And I think from now on, maybe I'll just call 911 and have somebody go over there and quiet them down, because I don't feel like it's my responsibility to monitor those people. They're his people, they're his clients, and I don't feel like that's my responsibility. So that was what happened Saturday night. But they did calm down about 11:45, and I thought, okay, you got out of it this time, but next time, if they keep it up, it's going to be, I'm calling somebody. Also, we've had an incident a while back. I don't remember exactly how long, but within the last year, maybe 6 months ago, one of my neighbors told me that a puppy showed up in her yard. And she went out to get the puppy, and she found a tag on it. It had a phone number on it. She called the phone number, and it was people over there in the campground. It was their puppy, drifted all the way over to where we were. I don't know how that happened. I guess I was at work because I'm so close and right across from it. I would think it might even come through my yard. But anyway, she was telling me about it sometime later. And so she said, yeah, she said, we called the phone number, cute puppy, might have been an expensive puppy, I don't know. But she called the number and the people said, oh yeah, we lost our puppy. He got away. And, oh, thank you so much for finding him. And where do you live? We'll come and get him. And so they did. But, and I thought I had heard pets over there before. Now we have one drifting over from over that way. So that's another thing. I mean, puppy's not going to hurt anything, but, they should keep an eye on their puppies or keep an eye on their animals, or maybe not have animals and maybe not bring them. I'm not sure what the answer to that would be. Let me see what else. Yes, I do have a problem with noise over there, as I mentioned, especially in the last 6 months. I rarely go down Flat Rock Road anymore. Occasionally I do. It's been so ugly over there where all the construction equipment and all the materials, the building materials piled everywhere. Vehicles backing up, beep, 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 whatever. And so I thought, well, there's just all kinds of noise coming from over there. I saw skid steers over there. I believe that's what that was, or something like it. Nail guns, like I said, construction vehicles, and materials. It just looked so ugly. I thought, I'm not even coming down this road anymore. Or if I do, it's not going to be very often. I go all the way around just to not look at it. It's just been so ugly. It's right there at the road, like you saw in the pictures. And I thought, I'm just not coming down here anymore. So that's a visual aspect of it, I guess. I can't remember what Shane called it. Visual impact, that's what he called it. But yeah, and all the leaf blowers, chainsaws, all kinds of stuff going on over there. It's not all day long. It's just from one day to the next, to the next, to the next. And I understand he wants to keep the place up really nice, but that's a part of the noise. And so I just want to let that be known that, there's always noise going on over there. It's of one kind or another. And he expressed to me last time that he really didn't like coming up here every year to have an amendment to put more tree houses out there so that he could make a profit. And I thought, well, how many does it take to make a profit? He's got what, is it 7 or 8 now? And I thought, how many does it take to make a profit? Does it take 10, 20, 25, 35, 50? How many does it take to make a profit out there? I mean, maybe there's something there that I'm missing, because I don't think it's cheap to stay there at night. I've not been over there to stay, and I probably won't. But I think, how many does it take to make a profit? Maybe there's some issues there that he didn't take into account, or maybe he's doesn't have a proper perspective. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's what we discussed about the last meeting that we had last year, and he and I were discussing it after we walked out of here. So I think if I have, just going back a minute, I think if I have any more troubles from people over there making noise, being up late and partying and carrying on and letting their hair hang out or hang down and just acting like, oh, I'm out in the Uwharrie or somewhere, and I could just do anything I want to. That seems to be the attitude of a lot of people that go over there. And I'll just crank my radio up and I'll just yell and shout and just have the best old time. And I'll just, just let it all out. So I'd like to see that there be a quiet time over there so that people would understand that there are others in the world besides them. So I guess that's most of the issues that I have with that development.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me, letting me vent a little bit.
All right, is there anyone else that'd like to speak? All right, if not, then we'll close the public hearing. Hey, Trent, come on up. I want to ask one other thing. You don't have on, I think we talked about this last time, you don't have on-premises management, right? Well, not like a hotel or apartments or condos where someone lives there and manages.
No.
So when someone rents one of your facilities, I'm sure you've got policies that.
Yes. One of them is a no dog policy. So I don't know where that dog came from, but I can't check everybody in and check their cars, but we do have a no dog policy. Just if anybody was curious, I don't know how the dog got over there, but we have a no pet policy.
How about the, she mentioned quiet hour. Do you have anything in your check-in policy, or is it online, or do you send it to them whenever they book? Do you send them a set of policies?
Yes, sir. So when they check in, they get all their stuff and it just says, be courteous of the other people. And, to be completely honest, gunshots go off more in that surrounding farm area than any noise at our place. Last year when we left, I talked with, with the man back here, and I said, call me whenever anything happens. I'll be happy to come help. But I got 0 calls this year again. And like I said, Mr. Tidwell, he said, Trent, we have no problem with your place. And we back right up to his house. He said, the biggest problem is my own street. He said, there's parties on this street every night that I can't get a hold of. He said, we have no problem with your farm. So again, I'm not claiming that out of 365 nights, you might not have heard the radio once. That you might have heard that. But everything else, I think, was a little bit, exaggerated, it's my opinion, but.
All right, I want to make sure there was something in your policy that let folks know that, hey, there's neighbors around here, and just be considerate.
Okay.
And that's one thing I would just follow up on. I live in a neighborhood, Craig lives in a neighborhood, you live in a neighborhood, Mike does. And, we all hear the blowers, we all hear the mowers, we all hear the backyard birthday parties. We don't live apart. We are affiliative people, and we enjoy one another. And so I think some of this is just to be expected. I think we all live with that. We certainly don't want it to be out of hand, and we want folks to be considerate. But hearing things on occasion, I think whether that is there or whether there's, how many acres do you have, Trent?
26.4.
26. So, you could have 50 houses in there and it'd be a lot worse, and having construction, if you sold it and they started building stick-built homes in there, there'd be a lot of moving equipment, a lot of shingles getting put up. So I think this is just living. I don't think it's out of the ordinary. It's not the woods like it used to be, but I think that's one issue that Rowan County is, I've said this before, I think we're going to be faced with. We have been the best kept secret. I've got a friend that's on planning board here that said, Rowan County has been a cheap date for a long time. We've got land that now other communities don't have. And so we're going to start seeing some development because we have reasonable land costs. We have access to water and sewer in a lot of places. We have 85 and 29, and access to 77 and 70 and water, and the Yadkin and Duke Energy. I mean, we've been talking about this, right? We've been talking about this for a long time, and now it's coming. And so there are going to be folks for the first time that are faced with things that I don't think they've been faced with before, like having a neighbor, like having a backdoor neighbor. You know, there's 300 acres behind you, and you've enjoyed that. But now things might begin to change, and we're all going to have to figure out how to get along with some change. So I just don't find anything that's out of the ordinary for that. And if they are, I'd you know, if it's something that's absolutely unacceptable, then you have the right as a citizen to call the sheriff. I think you ought to do that. So, but I just haven't heard anything that's out of the ordinary. And then we don't get into the profit thing. That's up to them. What we have to do is we have, as a board, to determine if things are reasonable. And whether he's making a little bit of money or a lot is not up to us to decide that. In fact, we hope he makes a lot of money, and he's able to invest that in other things that will help this community grow and this community get better. So those are my only comments. Anyone else have anything to?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I appreciate this young woman's problem because I've had it in neighborhoods I've lived in. One thing you do need to know, there is an amplified music ordinance in the county. And I would suggest, just like the chairman did, if it gets to be an issue, pick up the phone, call the sheriff, and let him send a deputy out and investigate it, make an incident report. And if it gets to be too much, then that gives us grounds to do something different. So just to let you know, it's really the ball's in your court because we don't live out there.
All right, so I'll offer up 3 findings of fact, and I'll do each one of them as a motion separately, and then I'll ask for a second. The development, make a motion, the development of the property in accordance with the proposed conditions will not materially endanger the public health or safety. NCDOT has issued approvals for driveway entrances to safely access Flat Rock Road. Enhanced screening or fencing along the eastern property line toward Beaver Road should eliminate any future visual conflicts. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Second motion is that the development of the property is in accordance with the proposed conditions will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the development is a public necessity. 8, we'll make that 7 new residential units. No, I'm sorry. 8 new residential units have been built within a half mile of the project during the last 5 years, suggesting the project is not a deterrent to adjoining residential properties or those in the area. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And third motion is that the location and character of the development is in accordance with the proposed conditions, will be in general harmony with the area in which it is located and in general conformity with any adopted county plans. The material and evidence presented has demonstrated the Cherry Treesort property complies with the general and specific conditional use criteria in conjunction with the conditions this board has attached to approval. Suggested is generally compatible with land uses in the RA districts. There's
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then do we have a motion to approve amending CUP 08-16?
So moved.
All right, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you all. All right, Shane, you up again?
Here's another deja vu moment here. Our 21-22 home funding action plan was approved during a hearing about a month ago, but with a member jurisdiction opting out, then that's $30,000 additional dollars that the county would receive for this program. So With that, it requires, when it extends over 10%, it requires a new hearing. It's essentially the same thing as the previous request. So actions, the suggested actions are at the bottom. There's 5 of those with the same as the previous one. And if you've got any hard questions, Chanaka Yadawara is on the line. So,
Oh, is he?
yes, sir. But if there's anything I could answer, which would be questionable, I'll give it a shot.
Chanaka, here's your chance. Anything you want to say to the board? All right, maybe not. Nothing personal, Chanaka. All right, then we'll go ahead and open the floor and conduct a public hearing for the Home Funding Action Plan. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on the FY 21-22 Home Funding Action Plan? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And let's see, here's some motions here. Do we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 21-22 Home Funding Action Plan and accept the modification of an increase in consortium funding of 10%? Well, we know what the amount is, but do we accept the modification of a decrease or increase funding of 10%?
So moved.
All right, second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? Shane, do I need to do all these separately? Can we do them as one?
No, sir.
All right. Do we have a motion to authorize the county manager to sign the application as a certifying official? Authorize the county manager to sign all administrative and housing related documents associated with the program, including current and past annual agreements with the city of Concord, and authorize the chairman to enter into contract with the Salisbury CDC to administer the county's program for fiscal year 21-22.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and that's it. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
All right, Randy, is Randy going to be on Zoom or? All right, Randy's on Zoom. So Randy's going to present an item, an update from Charter regarding an impact in Rowan County for rural broadband.
And Mr. Chairman, if you would allow it, I'd like to let Mike Tank from Charter provide that update since he's the expert in the field. This was a finding that we recently had as we look to find different broadband opportunities and make sure that we have access as fast as possible. We ran across an award that Mr. Tank will provide an update on that impacts citizens with the unserved and underserved areas in Rowan County. So if it's okay with you, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tank.
Mike, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come here and talk to you a little bit this evening about the RDOF the program. I know how important broadband is. It's certainly been shown, especially through this pandemic with remote school learning, remote work, communications with medical, and all the needs of that. So this is a way that we can work with the federal government to get to the lower density unserved area. So what I'm here to talk about is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, or also commonly known as RDOF. Okay.
Next page.
Yeah.
Or you control it, Mike.
I'm not familiar. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think I got her there. Yep. Okay. So what the RDOF is, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, this is something that was proposed to expand to broadband service in unserved areas. And this is way the FCC, Federal Communications Committee, put together a program to service these areas. And we know, and I know you folks certainly know, that the economics to expand into to rural areas is very difficult. If you're in more of the urban area or the higher density areas, that's one economic model. When you get out into the rural areas, it's much tougher. So the federal government recognized this through the FCC. And so what they did is they put this program together. they needed to have a structure to identify what areas could be eligible for this grant program that they have. So the way they structured it is under census blocks. And so when you look at the census blocks throughout the county, the ones that have no broadband service in those census blocks were the ones that are eligible. So if there is one house, a half dozen houses, 10 houses out of 200 in that census block, it was not eligible for RDOF grant funding. And the federal government definition of what serviceability is 25 megabits by 3 megabits up and down. And so that's the FCC definition. So if it did not meet that, it was not considered broadband. And if it was higher than that, and it was. So the way the FCC went about this is they wanted to make sure that they were given a fair shot to anybody that wanted to participate. So they held what was called a reverse auction. And this reverse auction, the way it worked is any provider could make an application to or a bid for this auction area. And I'm gonna make up some numbers just for example purposes. So let's say a provider, us, wanted to go in there and we wanted to bid on providing service to the homes in that census block. And let's say the cost of it was $100 to build it. We would go in and say, from our means, we could do it. We would need, we could build it for $60. So we would need $40 from the FCC to offset that cost to make it make sense. Another provider could come in and say, well, we could do it for $70 and we would need $30, or excuse me, they could do it for $50 and need 50% from the FCC. So the FCC would look at it and say, okay, we will award it to Charter because they're requiring the least amount of money from federal government. So in all cases, any provider, whether it's us, whether it's somebody else, they are having a portion of the funds themselves through their own capital fund, and then they're being matched by the federal government. So that's kind of the way it went. The reverse auction was, the awards came out at the end of, or the beginning of December of last year. And then after that, until the end of January, was a quiet period where we had to file certain documents and other information to the FCC. So throughout the nation, Charter was one of the larger winners of various RDOF auctions. We were very aggressive in going after these. And so we won over 1 million locations. And that's an FCC term, a location. Really, when you look at it, a location is an address or a structure. So it could be a resident, it could be a business, it could be a church, it could be a municipal building, it could be any type of structure. It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual home. But to do that, we are, as a company, are going to be investing over $5 billion in the investment, and we're going to be getting 1.2 billion offsets from the federal government to help make it work for us. So on this map, and I gave each of you a packet where there are some hard copies of some of these documents here so that you can see that. In North Carolina, we were also very aggressive in going after certain areas. So on this map that you see, you can see the dark blue is the RDOF areas that we won. Excuse me, the green is areas that we won, and the dark blue is our existing footprint. But in doing that, we won over 128,000 addresses in the state of North Carolina, and we'll be getting a FCC offset of over $142 million. So again, it's a large investment that we are undertaking. In Rowan, this is a map that it's really a screenshot off of the FCC website. And the purple line is a rough drawing of the county border just to make it easy. Now, it's an approximation because I use my mouse on my computer to draw that, so that's why it's not perfect, but I think it's a good representation. You'll see the green areas and they're identified on there as excuse me, are identified as the CCO Holdings. That's the name we bid under, but it's also Charter Communications. So anything in green is Charter, and those are the areas that we won. So those areas in green that we won reflect 942 different locations and a funding support of $839,000 coming from the FCC as an offset to our capital investment. So we are making a significant investment on top of that. Excuse me. So as we're going forward, I mentioned that this is a large investment that Charter is making in the state, across the country. And in doing that, to do this, we are establishing a brand new department. The department is called our RDOF department, and it's across the entire country. We're going to be hiring over 2,000 new employees. We're going to be hiring a lot of contractors to help us do this work. There's going to be a lot of activity going on. We're breaking it down into regions. We are going to have one area for the Carolinas, which is going to be North and South Carolina. It's going to be based down in Charlotte, and they're going to be overseeing all the RDOF work that we're going to be doing. Excuse me. To talk about the process in which we go about this doing, right now we are still in the process of organizing and structuring the entire build out program. The first step that we're doing right now is going out and doing, well, after we get our department completely organized, we're going to be going out and doing what we call a walkout. When we made these bids, we made the bids off of mapping and GIS programs and various other methods. We did not have boots on the ground and walked every mile of this across the entire country to make our bids. So now that we've won the bids, we are having to go out there and do the design, the mapping, and a lot of that preliminary work. So as we do this walkout, one of the things that we're looking at is, how are we going to build this? Are there pole lines out there that we can attach our lines to go forward and get the work done? One of the issues that is going to be that we have to identify and go forward is the pole attachments and how we build it. We really prefer to go aerial. It is far less expensive than trying to go underground and burying all the lines. But one of the hangups, concerns in doing that are the poles themselves. We have to look and make sure that the poles can accept our lines and that they're in good shape and have room for us. So what that's called is make-ready work. So we have to go to the owner of the pole company, be it Duke, REMC, whoever it might be, and we will make an application for those poles. We can kind of tell by looking at it, but especially when you're talking about in rural areas, many times these poles were put out there 30, 40, 50 years ago. They've been out there for a long time. Then when they were put in, they were really designed for hanging the power lines, maybe a phone line, and they weren't designed to carry additional services on them. So to meet the NESC, National Electrical Safety Code, we have to have space on those poles to make attachments. And what that means is we have to have so many feet below the power company so that we attach theirs to make it for safety reasons. And then we have to have so many feet or inches above anybody else on that pole, primarily the phone company, to make sure there's proper clearance. That also goes into the sag in between poles so that we don't cross over each other. We have to have proper clearance above roadways to make sure that traffic and in farm fields, farm machinery can get in, and so on. So there are certain requirements we have to do. So to make those attachments on the poles, we have to make sure that the poles are in good shape. And like I said, many times there are older poles out there that may have to be replaced and so on. So that's a lot of the type of work that we're looking at to prepare getting out there to get the poles put together. So then once we have that and understand that, We will then make applications to the pole owner to have them do the work. So those are things that will take some time before we can go out there and actually do our work. In the meantime, we are doing our design work. And when we talk about the design and the new service, a lot of people have asked me, well, what kind of service are you going to be providing? Is it going to be, some folks have asked, is it going to be a wireless service? Is it going to be fiber? Is it going to be coaxial? What is it going to be? Traditionally, we have, as a company, have done fiber to the node with coax going in from there. But recently, we have been doing a lot more fiber to the home. So to tell you which one of these two technologies it will be, I can't tell you. They're going to do that based upon the design after they do the walkout to see what they can do. There's a good chance it could be fiber to the home. One thing I can tell you is we will do a hard line to the home. So it will not be a wireless solution. So it won't be point-to-point service, similar to, I think, what your RFP was with open broadband. This is going to be a different solution of a hard line going to the home. I mentioned the type of construction. We'd prefer to go aerial, but if the cost of make ready is going to be too great or we can't get it done, we may have to go underground. But those, again, are higher per cost footage, and many times the terrain can have some impact upon that. Hopefully in this area, it'll be a little more, since we're not up in the mountains, it won't be as rocky and so on. So we can get that going forward. Folks have asked me that once we get this installed, what will the service be? What kind of speeds and so on will we be offering? We will be offering the same level of service that we do offer here in Salisbury, and we offer across all the Carolinas, whether you're in Raleigh or Charlotte or Asheville, the same level of service. Our standard broadband will be 200 megabits per second with a return of 10 megabits per second. We will have optional service of up to, we call it a gig service. Technically, it's 940 megabits per second, but almost a gig, and with a 35 megabit return. And then we'll also be offering our Spectrum Internet Assist program, and that's a low-cost internet, high-speed internet service that people have to qualify. Excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice. I apologize for that. But I put a flyer in that packet that talks a little bit about that. To qualify for that, it's available for any existing customer, or excuse me, any non-existing customer, somebody that's not a service who potentially couldn't afford it, but it talks about high-speed internet for $17.99 per month, and you have to qualify. Qualifying is a family that has somebody that's on free or reduced lunches, or a senior that's on SSI, supplemental Social Security income. So those will be the services that will be offered. In addition to that, we'll be offering our video services, so they'll have all the choices that's available. We'll also be offering home VoIP service, and then also our wireless phone service that would be available. Now, the other question that I get frequently asked is, what's the timing of all this? So the program that the FCC set up, it's a 6-year program. So we, as I showed earlier, I haven't been advancing, okay. It's a 6-year program. Here in North Carolina, we've got 128,000 locations we're going to be doing. So as I mentioned, we have this department that's going to be looking to set this up. They are going to be looking at setting up the order in which they do things. Where that's going to fall, I don't know. But the requirements that the FCC have given to us is basically on a state-by-state basis. By the end of year 3, we have to be 40% complete, and then add 20% each year after that. So 60% at 5, 80% at 7, or I got my dates mixed up, but you got it. By end of year 6, we're going to be 100% completed. Now, we certainly are going to be trying to move that ahead and beat those timelines. We prefer to do that. And my thought process, and this is just Mike Tank speculating this is not a charter promise, this is not anything, but places where we have existing footprint, where we can easily move forward, where the next places that we can move out to make sure if we have good, clean running, we have little make ready, those are the places we're going to be going first. So that's what the guys are going to be looking at when they do the design and when they put the order together. So hopefully you guys might be on the front end. I can't sit here and promise you that you are going to be on the front end, but we will certainly communicate information with you as we know more. In the packet, I've also given you a press release that was released when we first announced the RDOF information, and also there is a blog on there. In there is also a copy of this screen, and this screen provides you a lot of websites that can help you find out information and do some research. So when you look at these, the top one is the main website for the FCC auction. So if you're interested in RDOF and find out the process and a lot of information, you can go there. If you want to see who was awarded by various locations, you can go to that next one. Then there's two maps in there. One is the official FCC map and the other one is the CNS map, and CNS stands for Cooperative Network Systems. They're a third party who put together a map, and actually that's the maps I took a screenshot off of. Those are both interactive maps so that you can go in there and enter in a specific address. If you're saying, oh, is this house included in it or out? You can go in there and plug it in that way, and it works across the entire country. So you can look at it that way. Then below that is the press release and the blog that I've given you hard copies of. And that very bottom one is a website that we've put together that as we get residents who say, oh, am I in? When will you be coming? And all that, we direct them to that website, because you can go in there and the resident can add their own home address, and then they can look and they can sign up to get emails sent to them for progress reports and so on. So that is a way that we direct a location we can direct folks to. I think that's pretty much the quick coverage of that. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have about this.
Mike, the only thing I would ask is I was on a call a couple of months ago and heard the speaker say, if you don't know what you want, then you just get what someone gives you. It's up to someone else to give you what you get, I think is the way it went. Will you just let us know if there's anything that the county can do to influence the timeline on this as we start lining people up? If there's something that we can do from a technology standpoint or a technical standpoint or a cooperative standpoint. We've been working on this for several years already, and I don't want us to end with all that. We had this conversation by Zoom. As long as we've been working on this, now that the whole state is going to be involved in this, I don't want us to get shuffled to the back. If we can shuffle to the front and have some influence on that, we want to do that.
If there are things that we can talk about, I'll be happy to come talk to you. I know we have talked about a few other opportunities, proposals through the great grant, through some other things, and for some of these areas that did not qualify under because they were not part of the census block. So we're open to have further discussions about other areas beyond this. But tonight, I really just wanted to come share the information about the RDOF with you.
You said you roughly, it's about 900 locations. Do you know how many total locations there were across Rowan County that were unserved? Do you know that?
I do not know that number. No. I know what you're asking, and no, I don't know that number. So,
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that for you. We had looked into that. It's just over 1,100 homes. So out of the 942 that Charter will be covering with this, it does look like they have a large majority of those locations, or I shouldn't say home service locations.
Yeah, I think we would be surprised at that number, Randy.
And keep in mind, this is only the FCC unserved locations. And as Mike Tank had mentioned, the FCC can consider a census block with only one home that has service to be a serviceable census block. So that skews the numbers. There's a lot of reports on the FCC maps, and I know North Carolina is looking at taking this a different approach, and also the federal government as well. It's just what everybody has to work with at the moment.
Okay. Mike, thank you for your time last week and also tonight. Any other questions?
In the packet also is my card. It's got my cell phone, my office number, and my email. So if anybody has any questions, specific, indirect, or whatever, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We genuinely appreciate it. Mr. Justin, how are you?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Good. It's good to have you here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about community access point for the VA's Vet Center program. So Justin, thanks for coming.
Yes, sir. Thanks again for having me. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Brief synopsis, email and in the packet as well. There was a brief synopsis of the mission plan of what the Vet Center actually looks to accomplish. To condense that a little bit, the purpose of the VA's Vet Center program is to dispense with the stigma of attending a hospital for treatment and make access to things like mental health support more available to veterans. Support's provided to the veterans as well as their families as needed. Support therapy is also given to Gold Star families or families of veterans who passed on active duty. Additionally, Vet Center records are considered confidential. However, upon signed consent from the veteran themselves, those records can be released to appropriate bodies for use for service connection purposes, which is our wheelhouse. We're concerned with that kind of thing, and we like having those records. Current locations for vet centers include Charlotte, Morganton, Gastonia, and Rock Hill. It was communicated to me that there is or was one in Albemarle, that location is either shut down or going to be shut down very quickly. The Vet Center operates independently. They independently identified Rowan County as an ideal location, given current geography of locations and our proximity to the Hefner VA Medical Center. As I said, they want to try to keep the veterans out of the hospital, do away with the stigma, and bring them into an environment that they feel is a little more conducive. I was contacted by Mr. Lance Nelson. We met shortly by Zoom. He identified the following requests. Their needs would include a group therapy room and a private office space for one-on-one therapy, the group room being for group therapy. He projects that occurring 2 to 3 times a month. He indicated that their procedure is that they do have a standard memorandum of agreement that would be forwarded to the appropriate bodies if the board sees fit to move forward with this. So,
what do you need from us tonight? Or do you need something from us tonight?
Only the approval to move forward with the memorandum. Obviously, we're not looking to identify space or anything like that. We're not doing specifics like that. Just to give permission for them to send the memorandum to the appropriate bodies within the county to move forward with the logistics of how that works. At this point, we don't have any idea how contracts, any of that. We haven't even moved forward that far. It's just been the email that was initial contact that was forwarded on just for permission to look into this to see if the county was interested.
Do we need to give any specific person authority? Would it be Jay? Would it be Jay and Aaron? Would it need to come back to the board?
Most likely, I would think it would have to come back. Jay would obviously be involved because of the contract issues, as well as the manager. At a minimum, my involvement would most likely be at their request or the request of the board. I would assume, have to come back again with final memorandums and things like that for final approval. So this definitely would not be the last time that this item, maybe not me, but this item specifically would come before the board. Basically just seeking permission to move forward with memorandum submission to ask for them to submit it to the appropriate parties.
Jay, any comments? If we move ahead, Jay, what do you think our motion tonight would be?
Looking just for a motion to authorize staff to work towards.
That's probably the simplest. The most general way we could put permission to move forward to obtain memorandums from the VA itself.
I think I'd like for Mike to make that motion.
Make the motion.
No, the reason I say that, I know how active
Break that down for us a little bit more.
Mike is with the veterans, and I think he deserves that recognition.
Well, yeah, I'll make the motion that, with our county staff, and Jay to move forward, working with these groups. Hopefully we can get a, VA center here.
All right, thanks.
Mike second.
You know what? Take this opportunity, since Justin is here. We've had Justin a couple years now as our Director of Veterans Affairs or Services, and I want to tell you what a good job veteran Justin does. I see him all over the place. He is, I see him by himself talking to people. They're really comfortable working with him. He's an asset that we don't realize what we have sometimes. I think some of our directors kind of go under the radar a little bit, but Justin needs some recognition for all the good and the hard work that he does. And since he's here, and yesterday was his birthday,
Whoa,
bring that up.
birthday.
I even wore my camouflage mask today, trying to fly under the radar.
Hitting 30's tough, isn't it?
It is, especially for the 9th time.
Ninth time. Well, next year's a doozy.
I'm going to turn 39 a whole bunch.
Yeah.
My wife sticks with 29, so I figure I'll go 10 years ahead, not steal her thunder.
Well, we do see you with the veterans and
Appreciate that.
see your heart.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you.
Yeah, and I'd like to tell him also, if we didn't have someone the caliber that you are, I would take a long, hard look at trying to move forward with this program, but I know that it will be in capable hands.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the confidence and appreciate the appreciation. Means a lot.
We appreciate that.
Alliteration aside, thank you.
All right, Mike made the motion, Craig seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Justin.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night. Thanks for being here. We need to, typically, no, I don't. When did we do budget work session last year? Carolyn, do you know?
Yeah, it was
It was
early.
January last year.
Well, that's kind of the annual retreat, but we do a budget work session too, separate from that. Well, anyway, that doesn't matter. Aaron, you're on there. We haven't talked to you yet tonight. What is your timeline for budget, and when would you like to see us calendar this budget work session so that it'll fit with your work schedule and timeline to get the budget ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is kind of, I guess, will be kind of a hybrid of a retreat, budget work session, and a discussion of the American Recovery Act budget. And we are getting close. We have met with almost all the departments. Today we started looking at revenues. We could probably meet as early as the end of April or the 1st of May.
Well, end of April would be next week. The 1st of May would be the first Monday in May is May 3rd. That's a county commission meeting day. So we could meet, and that would be at 3 o'clock. Now, I don't know if we would want to meet before our 3 o'clock meeting and just make Monday, a commission day, or if you want to come back in Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Well, okay.
Also, I think I have court that day in the morning. In the morning.
Mike, what's good for you that week?
The week of the 3rd.
Yes, sir.
Probably, I could probably work something out on Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Thursday. That would be the 6th.
Are we talking about half a day? Are we talking about all day? If we could do it in the mornings, it would work out well for me.
Aaron, were you going to say something?
I was going to say probably a half a day. There's a couple of topics that are around the budget and surround funding that may take up 30 minutes to an hour just with those topics. And so probably 3 or 4 hours.
All right, so I'm available anytime on Thursday, the 6th. Jim says morning. Are you available on the 6th? Morning? Yeah. After 10? Okay.
I'm with Judy. I ain't getting up at no 8 o'clock. Not no more.
Mike, are you okay at 10?
Yeah, anytime.
10, okay. After 10.
Oh, no, 10 o'clock.
All right, Aaron, does 10 o'clock on May 6th work for you?
Yes, sir.
Aaron, will you send an email to that effect so I'll remember?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will you carbon copy the rest of it?
I'll do it right now.
All right. He's a good manager, isn't he? All right. Carolyn, anything you need to add to that? All right. All right, item number 9, budget amendments were provided for us. Motion to approve budget amendments.
So moved.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jim, you're on.
Yes, sir. All right. First graph, as you can see, commissioners, is the expenditure report through March of 2021. We are at $109.4 million for the year, for the fiscal year, which is roughly 2.7 million more than last year. And of course, a big contributor to that is COVID dollars, roughly 5.3 million. And offset by various departments that are spending less than they did last year. The next slide is our overall revenue slide. Through the month of March, we're at $131 million, which is almost $10 million higher than last year. Which sounds. Can we slide that over where we can make sure we're reading what you're doing? Because mine just says annual cumulative, and then it's talking about it. So I don't know if it's there. Thank you, April.
Thank you, April. So through March 2021 fiscal year, $131 million. Last year at the same time was 121.8 million. And again, the big driver of that is CRF funds is part of that, which is 5.3 million. Property tax is up about $900,000, which we'll show that graph here shortly. Sales tax, almost 1.5 million, which will show that graph. And another big piece of that is social services is up about $1 million.
$800,000 of that's from Cardinal Health, which we just received a few weeks ago. Next slide, April, please. Which this should be the property tax slide, which shows we're at $84.2 million through the month of February, which is a little under $1 million more than last year. Collection percentages are almost identical. Next slide,
Jim,
please.
what
Yes, sir.
is that percentage?
84, wasn't it? Figured you would ask. Give me a second, I'll look it up.
Go back one slide there.
Like you said, it was 84%, right?
Collection rate?
No, I think we should be in the 90s, but give me 1 second, please.
No, 84 million is what we got.
84 million, I think you said the collections were similar to last year. You didn't give us a percentage on anything.
$95.04%.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right, here's the sales tax slide. We're at 15.5 million through the month of December, which is roughly 1.5 million more than we were last year at the same time. In April, go to the next slide if you would, please. This is just the monthly breakdown of sales tax, sort of showing you the ins and outs, ups and downs of it. I just thought it was an interesting graph for you guys to look at.
A big December one, didn't it? Everybody sitting home looking at the computer, buying stuff, ordering stuff off what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, gonna be tough.
And that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
All right.
Dark clouds, you see?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
The litter report. I'll just read what Caleb sent to us. Rowan County Department of Environmental Management works to promote clean and green roadsides throughout our county. We work closely with Rowan County law enforcement to help alleviate the growing problem of roadside litter and illegal dumping within our county borders. Through our roadside litter removal education programs and by working closely with our partners, we've achieved some success in mitigating roadside litter. Rowan County staff monitors almost 2,500 miles of shoulder and roadway. During the first quarter of 2021, the Department of Environmental Management removed 37.77 tons of litter and debris from along Rowan County roadsides, 330 improperly discarded tires, and 131 syringes. Good gracious. So in the first quarter it was 75,545 pounds of litter removed from the roads. Now, Rowan County, what this means, our county manager, along with Caleb Sinclair from Department of Environmental Management, they put together a program where we bought vehicles and we employed people that just pick up garbage on the side of the road. We didn't do that before, but it was getting so bad. And just in the first 3 months, we picked up 75,545 pounds of litter. I don't know what to say. It's just a whole lot, and not bag or what, but heavens.
Mr. Chairman, do we pick up litter in Salisbury in the city limits?
I don't think so. I think it's county roads.
The reason I ask, I saw 2 mattresses sit right past Grants Creek for 2 months
And if I'd have had a pickup truck, I'd have got them, but I don't have a pickup truck. But I thought to myself, right there, the entrance of Eagle Heights and going to the country club and these mattresses sitting on the side of the road, I just can't believe somebody hadn't picked it up. So maybe we ought to talk to them about getting their program together. One of the worst areas is on Woodleaf Road because people are going down there to go to Campbell Road, which is where the County landfill is located. And there's a lot of stuff that just blows off of trailers, that contractors that dump garbage trucks that are going. If those folks would just take a little more time and secure their load down through there, it sure would make it a lot nicer along that road up and down through there. Our people do a great job, but that's just a long stretch in there for them to have to. And they're out there, I see them every day doing it. So if we could help in that manner, just take a minute to secure your load before you take off to the landfill.
I cannot imagine what our roads would look like if we weren't doing that. All right, I need to make a motion that we enter into closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A1 to consider approval of the minutes of the closed session held on April 5th, 2021, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A4 to discuss potential economic development matter. Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll get started as soon as we. All right, we're out of closed session. There's no action to come out of closed session, so I'll make, we have a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
In a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.